Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, and on screen we have a very special puzzle for you today. This is by none other than three-time World Sudoku champion, ex-World Puzzle champion Thomas Snyder. And you can see it's a pretty visually arresting theme with a countdown going on, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll explain what's going on there in just a minute. I want to mention first that I know a lot of you have been enjoying the videos that I put up yesterday on Patreon. There was a free video with Hugo Schneider showing the solution to his nightmare 6x6 irregular diagonal Sudoku. That's been garnering rave reviews, so do check it out. And also, people have been enjoying on Patreon, those of you who support us there, Kurt's proof that a 6x6 diagonal Sudoku has to have symmetry, either horizontal or vertical. It is a very beautiful thing, and do check it out. Now, also a reward for those of you who do support us on Patreon. We know we have to make a monthly reward puzzle for you. Now, it's very nearly the 1st of June. And this morning, Mark and I were testing June's Patreon puzzle. It is an Olympic rings themed Sudoku, which we've made because we're going to miss the Olympics this summer, and that makes us a bit sad. But it's just going to be tested one more time, and then it should go live tomorrow. So do look out for that. Now, what is going on with Thomas's puzzle? Well, this is because gmpuzzles.com, which is a website I'm a big fan of, has went into a bit of a hiatus, and there were no new puzzles being posted, but it is relaunching tomorrow, and they've been counting down to the relaunch by releasing puzzles over the last couple of weeks, and this is the puzzle that is going to appear today to take us down from day 7 pre-launch, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's the idea behind Thomas's theme in this one. So it's beautiful, and do check out gmpuzzles.com. They have so many great puzzles, and I'm hoping we'll cover a few more of their puzzles in the coming weeks too. Now, what are the rules of this one? Let me just get them on my screen so I can read them to you guys. Right, we've got normal Sudoku rules apply. In addition, if a grey bar is given between two adjacent cells, then the two numbers in those cells must be consecutive. Note, not all possible grey bars are given. Adjacent cells without a bar may contain consecutive or non-consecutive numbers. So that is what we have here, a consecutive Sudoku. And I can't think of a better looking one I've ever seen, frankly. So do check this out. To play the puzzle, you click the link under the video. And with that, let's get cracking. And how do we start these? Right, well, the digits that are subject to the most constraint are 1s and 9s. So look, you can see Thomas has given us a very easy start here with the 1 being next to a grey bar. So that square can only be a 2, and therefore that square can only be a 3. And there's an important thing to notice about this. When you have grey bars in a line like this, the digits obviously have to be consecutive, and that is a big restriction. So now what I'm doing is I'm scanning the grid and I'm looking for, you can see lots of these digits have little runs of 3 consecutive numbers spanning them. But this is interesting, isn't it? Look at that. That's an enormous restriction going up through this 6, because not only do you have to go up through the 6, but this cell hits this sort of little shape at the top, and that takes us further. So we actually get a run of 7 cells there that need to be consecutive. So that is instantly what I think is going to be the sort of the weak point in the puzzle, in the sense that that's going to be where I have to break into the puzzle. Yes, and now look, this 1 suddenly is interesting to me. Now, why is that? Well, I can't put a 1 in any of those squares, because if I do, I'm going to break. I'm going to have to put a 0 in. Let me show you why. If I put a 1 here, sure, I can put a 2 on one side. What am I going to put on the other side now? I can't put a 2 anymore. So in theory, this would have to be a 0. Now, this puzzle doesn't have any zeros in it, so those squares cannot contain any 1s. The 1s move over onto the left-hand side of box 2. Yeah, and now look, where do we put the 1 in this box? this one, these ones, is going to have to be in one of those two. It can't go here for the same reason it couldn't go in any of those 3 squares. If it goes in this square, I can put a 2 on one side of it, but the other side will have to be a 0, so it definitely doesn't go in that cell. Now this is very clever setting, and it's what you'd expect from somebody like Thomas. Not only is he a brilliant solver, but he is a beautiful constructor of puzzles. Now this 2, which was sort of the gimme at the start, has suddenly also become more powerful. Because if the 1 is locked over to this side of box 2, can the 2 be on this side? And the answer is no, it can't. Because if we try and put the 2 here, it's got to have a 1 on one side of it, because all of these digits are consecutive. Now if that's the case, as this can't be a 1, there's nowhere to put the 1. The 1 has to live over there. So the 2 is not in any of those squares, therefore the 2 is in one of these squares, and it can't be here again, because if it's here it has to have a 1 either there or there because of the grey bars. So the 2s are a little bit restricted, and now the 2s must go in one of those 3 squares. But the 2 can't go in this square, because if we put the 2 here, there's only one place to put the 1, and it's here. And then that has to have something consecutive with it there. So if I do put a 2 there, I have to put another 2 in the box. So this is never a 2. Now, hang on. This is rather beautiful, isn't it? Because I now know that there is a 2 in one of these 2 squares. In other words, there is a 2 starting this chain of 7 cells. So this must be an ascending chain, and therefore that square can't possibly be a 2, because whether it's this square that's a 2 or this square that's a 2, I'm going to be going up, and I'm going to have a big digit here, definitely not a 2. So that means there's a 2 here. Now that's... this is lovely. What a start to this puzzle. This can't be a 1, because the 1 is over here. So this has to be a 3. And now this square has to be consecutive with a 3, but we know this is an ascending chain. So this can't be a 4. If it's a 4, that would be a 5. Let's just look at that. 4, 5... And now I can't put the 1 and the 2 that I know are in these 3 squares into these 3 squares. So this is a 2, this is a 1, this is a 4, 5, 6, 7. These are 1, 8, and 9. And I think there's a good lesson here, which is that it's tempting when you see these long chains in consecutive puzzles to just bash in and try and list all the options for the cells. But here, I'm not certain, but it feels to me like if you did that, it would be much less, well, it would be harder to spot that this was an ascending chain, and it would be quite difficult, I think, to see that there has to be a 2 in one of those 2 positions. So using the Sudoku was extremely interesting in terms of restricting how this enormous chain looked. Now, let's try and go a bit further, though. Where is the easy win? Is there an easy win? There might be. I'm not seeing it yet. Yeah, look. Yeah, we can go a little bit further here, because this square is consecutive with a 2 because it's running through the 6. Well, it can't be a 1, so that's a 3. That there must be a 1. That locks a 3 down here. Yeah, okay, so that's nice. If there's a 3 in this cell, what does that mean? Well, we have to have a 4 and a 2 on either side of it, because they are the consecutive digits, and both cells, both of these yellow cells, are divided from the 3 by a grey bar. Well, you can see that's going to be impossible, because there's a 2 there. So this cannot be the 3. The 3 must live at the very bottom there, and this can't be a 2, so we now know the order. This is a 4, 5, 6. There must be a 6 in one of those squares. That square we can write in. That's got to be a 7 now. There's got to be a 7 over here. Ah, this is now consecutive with 4. Can't be 3, so that must be 5. And this is consecutive with 5 and can't be 6, so that must be 4. These two squares are 8 and 9. That must be an 8 or a 9. Don't yet know how to do this bit. 6, 3, 1. One's, oh yeah, look at that. There's a 1 in one of those squares. Well, again, we've got 2 grey bars, so we can never put the 1 in the centre here. If we try and put the 1 in the centre, the implication would be that one side of it has to be a 0. We know that's not what's going to happen. So the 1 is on one side. And there's a 3 here. So can the 1 ever go into this cell? No, because if it does, 1, 2, 3 will be forced, and that's not going to work. So it must go the other way. So this becomes 1, 2, 3. This square can't be a 3, so it must be a 1. This square therefore becomes a 2. There's a 2 in one of those cells, a 3 in one of these cells. Oh, hang on, look, there's a 2 here. So it's not possible for either of those squares to be a 1, because if either of these squares is a 1, it forces a 2 because of the grey bars. So neither of those is a 1, the 1 lives at the top. So that square's got to be an 8 or a 9. Look, it can't be a 7 because there's a 7 in the row. That one could be a 7. 7, 8, 9, triple. Look, because this one is consecutive with this one, it can go down as far as 7, but it can't go down further. So all those 3 squares are forced to be 7, 8, or 9. So these squares are forced to be 4, 5, and 6 to complete the column. That can't be a 6. 1, look, must be in one of those 2 squares by Sudoku. That's these ones and that one interacting. Sorry, let me just take a quick stare and try and spot something interesting. 6 must be up there somewhere. So 6 must be down here somewhere. Ooh, now, yeah, let's look at row 4. Let's look at row 4. Now, the interesting thing about row 4 is that these 2 cells have to be consecutive. And if we look at what we've got here, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 7. So, can these 2 squares be 8 and 9? Well, the answer is no, because if we put 8, 9 in here, those 2 squares have to be an 8 and a 9 because of what we've already got in box 4. But it's not possible to have 8s and 9s there because look, then we'd have 3 cells in row 5 that have to be 8 and 9. So this is not 8 and 9. This is some combination of 4, 5, and 6. And as these are consecutive, they must include a 5. There's definitely a 5 on one side, which means there's a 5 in one of those 3 positions. Oh, hang on, there's a 6 down here. So, yeah, so this square, which can't be an 8 or a 9 or a 6, has to be a 4 or a 5. And this is going to be a run that then runs consecutive with that. I'm just wondering if we can narrow this down further. Let's see what we can see. So if this is a 5, it could go 4, 5, 6, 7. That doesn't work. or it could go the other way. No, the other way round doesn't work, because that would put a 6 here, and we know the 6 is down here because of this 6. So actually this just is a 4. That's a 4, that's a 5. This square, now this square here can't be 5, because the 5's there, so it must be 3, because it's consecutive with 4 again. So this is ascending, that makes this one a 5, that one a 6. There's a 6 down there. There's a 5 in one of those two cells. This must be a 6 now, because it can't be a 4 or a 5. These two squares are 8 and 9 to complete the row. We need to put a 7 in here. So these are 4, 5, and 7 in some order. And I guess, what do we do now? 5. Oh, this one. That 5 is consecutive with something, and it can't. So this square can't be a 6. That's a 4. There's a 4 up there. We've got all sorts of pencil marking going on. This sort of pencil marking, incidentally, where I pencil in the corner of squares, I call it Snyder notation, because the person who showed it to me many years ago was none other than Thomas Snyder. He's rather quicker than me at solving Sudoku, though. I don't mind that. He's one of the most brilliant geniuses you'll ever meet in your life. So, right. So, oh yeah. Okay. Now look, I've got 4s down here and 5s here. So what does that mean? Well, it means that can't be a 5, because if it's a 5, it needs to be surrounded by its 2 consecutive friends, and one of those friends is over there. So that's not 5. This is the 5. And now this can't be a 4, so it must be ascending. And we get those straight away. Now that's not a 6 anymore. That's not a 7. It's a 5 in one of those 3 cells. But hang on, look. I can probably do better. Yes, I can do better. This has to be 7, because it can't be 5. Look at that little bar there. I nearly missed it. So that's a 7. There's a 7 down there. This can't be 6. It's very nice the way these numbers work, isn't it? It really is. That's got to be 8, therefore. That locks an 8 into one of those cells up there. Now, I feel like we've done a lot of good work with these grey bars. I'm just staring at this now to see if have we actually... that square is interesting. Is that a naked single? No, not quite. If you look along here, we still need to place... that's why it was bugging me. It's a 6-7 pair. I felt like there was something strange about the 8. Those two squares there have got to be 2 and 9. I thought that might be resolvable, but I don't think it is. And I think we've used every grey bar apart from disambiguating this one. So at the moment we should be looking at a lot of Sudoku. In fact, that 8 is nice. It fixes the 8 down in this position in column 6. So that forces that to be a 6, that to be a 9, which we could have got from there as well. There must be an 8 over there. These two squares have got to be 3 and 9. There's a 3 here, so that's easily resolved. Locks a 3 up in those two squares. 9 here is going to be nice, because that's going to lock me my 9 and 8 into position. That forces that one to be an 8. That can't be a 6, look. 4, 5 pair in column 3. Now, what next? Let's see what we can see. Look, there's an 8, 9 pair there. So this can't be an 8 for sure. What do I need in this column? I still need 2, 3, and 9. So this square's got to be a 2 or a 3. That square's got to be 2, 3, or 9. 4, 5, 6. Nines, nines. Ones are over there. Maybe I can unwind one of these vast, or some of these vast amounts of pencil marks that I've got on the left hand side. Feels like I must be able to do something better. Look, there's a 2 in one of these two squares. Ah, there, this 1 is important because that locks the 1s here, which forces the 4 into the corner. Locks the 4 into one of those squares. We now are going to be able to write the 9 in here. This 6 is seeing the 6 and the 7 there. Ah, the 1-2 pair left in column 8 is nicely disambiguated now. We get the 2. We get the 1. We get the 2 here. This is a 3. This must be 9. That's a 2. That's a 9. 1, 7, 8 into those squares. So that one's a 7 or an 8. That's a 1 or an 8. And it can't be an 8 because there's an 8-9 pair. So this is a 1. And that's a 7 or an 8. This 1, look at that. It's going to do an awful lot over here. It gives us the 1. It gives us the 6. That gives us a 6 and gives us a 7 just by unwinding pencil marks. That locks a 7 into this square, but it's the only place a 7 can go. This has to be a 4 or a 5, like as we've got there, look. This can't be, oh dear, I didn't mean to do that. This can't be 1. So up here we've got 2, 4 and 5 to place. So this is a 2 or a 5, this is a 4 or a 5. Ah, that 2 of course, that's what's nice. 2, 5, 3, 4. Oh, I think I pressed the wrong buttons as I was doing that. 2, 5, 3, 4, 4, 5, 4, 5. Ah, now, okay, so we're left with the 7, 8s and 9s having to be disambiguated by, presumably by this. Now, let's just have a stare at this and see. You can see that one can't be 9 anyway because of the 9 there. Ah, now, if we make this square an 8, I think that makes those two squares 7 and 9. Let's just check that. I did that visually, which is probably not what I should be doing. Yes, it does, look. So if this is 8, you get the 7, 9 problem because of the grey bar. So this, in fact, has to be a 7. That fixes the 7 over there. Now this is nice as well, isn't it? Because ordinarily, this would be a deadly pattern. This would be something you would look at in the finished solution and say, well, there's no way of resolving whether this is a 9 here and a 9 here, 8 there and 8 there. But here, Thomas has built this in so that actually it all gets resolved by the top bar of the 7. Isn't that beautiful? This has to be 8 and it has to look like that. And I think that looks, does that say it's good? It does say it's good. Fantastic. What a lovely puzzle, Thomas. And do check out gmpuzzles.com. There are very, very few websites that can hold a candle to it in terms of quality. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.